Kristin Smart was an ordinary 19-year-old girl who went to a college party with her friends one evening in May 1996. She left the California Polytechnic State University campus to go to a birthday party, and the events of that evening aren't very clear. What we do know is that 3 other students walked her back to her dorms. Unfortunately, she was never seen after that. Her disappearance remained a mystery for nearly 3 decades.
Hello, wonderful people. I'm Scott Leffler for Wonderbot. And here is...
After 25 years, police might have cracked this case.
Before we begin, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell for more amazing videos.
"25 years after Kristin disappeared, her parents still didn't get answers. With more attention focused on Kristin's case, law enforcement went into full swing trying to find leads. With technological advancement and new evidence, is it possible that this mystery will finally be solved after 25 years? Will detectives be able to get to the bottom of the case once and for all? Well, it seems as though an arrest could be on the horizon. This is the case of Kristin Smart's tragic disappearance. Teachers Stan and Denise welcomed their eldest daughter, Kristin, into the world back in 1997. The couple was in Europe on business. At the time, they were working with the children of servicemen, so Kristin was born in Augsburg, Germany. However, the family moved back to the United States and lived in Stockton, California. According to her parents, Kristin was ambitious and adventurous from a very young age. She was so loving and caring, especially when her little brother and sister came along. Even as a child, she showered her siblings with attention. She was family-oriented and developed a love for travel. She enjoyed planning little trips for her family. The older she got, the more Kristin used her vacation time to get out and see different parts of the world. For example, when she was in high school, she went to Venezuela and sharpened up her Spanish skills. She just loved to experience different cultures. Kristin landed a wonderful job in Hawaii, where she worked as a lifeguard at a camp in 1995, just 1 year before she disappeared. June of that year, Kristin also graduated from Stockton's Lincoln High School, and she was ready for college. She traveled south to San Luis Obispo to attend Cal Poly and began her college education. She was a beautiful, ambitious student with her whole life ahead of her. Sadly, her dreams in life got cut tragically short. On Friday, May 24, 1996, the country was getting ready to enjoy the Memorial Day weekend. Normally, Kristin would call her parents on Sunday nights, but this time she decided to give them a ring a couple days early. Her parents weren't home, so Kristin left them a voicemail. What nobody expected was it was the last time Stan and Denise would hear their daughter's voice. That night, Kristin and her friends wanted to have a night out and looked for a fun party to go to. The social college freshman wanted to go to some venue off campus, but the friend she was out with didn't feel like leaving. She ultimately left her friends a few blocks away from where another student was hosting his birthday party. According to her friends, Kristin didn't touch any alcohol at that point, but other reports stated otherwise. Apparently, some witnesses spotted the young lady drinking vodka throughout the night. However, contradicting claims stated that Kristin was completely sober. Either way, the witness reports from that party were unclear. Whether or not it was at the party, it seems as though at some point Kristin was indeed intoxicated. 2 students, Tim Davis and Cheryl Anderson, noticed Kristin at about 2 a.m. She was lying down, completely passed out in front of the neighboring property. The 2 of them picked her up and helped her get back to her dorm. They just wanted to help. However, Anderson and Davis didn't get anywhere before Paul Flores joined them. He was another student who lived near Kristin. Later, it was discovered that he was already in trouble with the police because he supposedly tried to break into a woman's apartment. For some reason, law enforcement didn't notify campus police at Cal Poly. Nevertheless, the 4 of them headed toward the dorms, and Paul picked up Kristin as they walked. When they finally got to campus, Tim left to go to his car, and according to Cheryl, this is where things started to get weird. Supposedly, Paul kept telling her to go away so that he could be left alone with the drunk Kristin. Cheryl and Paul both walked to her dorm and said goodnight to Kristin. After that, nobody knows what happened to the 19-year-old. Paul claimed that he walked with her to his room before going back to her room alone. but Kristin never made it back to her room. Initially, her friends weren't too worried. They were kind of wondering why she didn't show up to breakfast for 2 days in a row, but they thought she was safe. They didn't consider that something might have happened to her. Kristin's roommate, Crystal Calvin, spent the weekend away, and when she got back on May 27th, the real panic was raised. Crystal was confused when she noticed that all of Kristin's things were placed exactly where they were placed when she left on Friday evening. The most concerning part was that no one had any clue where the young college student was. Crystal asked everyone in the dorm if they noticed her around, but no one could remember seeing her in days. Subsequently, Crystal contacted the campus police. Since it was Memorial Day weekend, things were moving slowly. A lot of the students go away for long weekends. The officers figured Kristin is probably one of them. Investigators contacted her mother, who confirmed that Kristin did not come home. That's when they realized they have a missing person on their hands. The next day, a campaign was launched by Kristin's family and friends to help find the missing girl. The police on campus, as well as in San Luis Obispo, began an official investigation. But it was almost a week after the party when they finally started questioning students. Among the students who got interviewed were Cheryl Anderson, Tim Davis, and Paul Flores. At the time of questioning, it was obvious that Paul had a black eye. When detectives asked him how he got it, Paul claimed the injury happened during a basketball game. A teammate later denied this statement. Despite this bizarre circumstances and these strong suspicions, campus authorities never searched Paul's dorm room. The college police admitted defeat weeks later and asked for help from the San Luis Obispo district attorney. As the investigation continued, Paul was looking more and more suspicious. He told different stories about how he obtained the black eye on various occasions. He was also noticeably reluctant to take a polygraph test. The investigation into Kristin's disappearance proceeded, and Paul left San Luis Obispo for the summer to spend time with his parents. Once he was gone, police brought cadaver dogs to search his room. Apparently, the dogs gravitated toward the mattress, in particular, suggesting something terrible might have happened in the Cal Poly dorms. Another piece of strong evidence was found in Arroyo Grande, about 17 miles from the Cal Poly campus. Reportedly, Paul's parents owned property there, and it was empty at the time Kristin disappeared. But in the past few weeks, a new tenant had already moved in. One day, she found an earring in her driveway. Since she was aware of the link between the home and the missing girl, the tenant gave the abandoned earring to detectives. Frustratingly, it was mysteriously misplaced. After hearing the description of the earring, Kristin's mom, Denise, was certain it was her daughter's. No matter how much the family pressured the police, this essential piece of evidence was strangely never found. 6 months after Kristin went missing, in November 1997, her family accused Paul Flores of wrongful death in court. The suspicious young man continued to deny playing a role in the strange mystery. With no solid evidence, he was never charged. Although they never stopped looking for their daughter, 2 years after Kristin's disappearance, her parents made a heartbreaking decision. In May 2002, Stan and Denise legally declared Kristin dead. By that point, a new law came into play, known as the Kristin Smart Campus Security Act. It mandated improved communication between local law enforcement and campus police. Unfortunately, that policy came too late to save Kristin's seemingly botched case. 17 years after the law was introduced, investigators discovered a new lead in the cold case. With the assistance of cadaver dogs, police searched an area located next to Kristin's dorm. Reportedly, several interesting items were found during the search. However, details regarding the results weren't released yet. But in September 2019, Kristin's case returned to the spotlight thanks to musician Chris Lambert. During an episode of his podcast, Your Own Backyard, Lambert discussed allegations that the missing teenager was buried under the concrete of that home Paul's parents owned. Supposedly, witnesses even heard beeping from the Arroyo Grande property yard, and it was around the same time Kristin's alarm would go off. Lambert also mentioned that there had been a number of reports from women who say they've been assaulted or harassed by Paul. Thanks to the limelight suddenly returning to the case, the potential suspect seemed extremely suspicious. By January 2020, Kristin's family got some unexpected news. It was reported by California newspaper The Record that Denise Smart was told by the FBI that she might want to get away for a while. Apparently, a big break in Kristin's case was about to come to light. Understandably, the family anxiously waited to hear the news. Is it really possible that this case can be closed after all these years? In the January 18th article, Denise stated, "I wish I knew when the break is going to come because it's very anxiety-producing. It's like, can you give me the flight plan? When is this happening?" Just a few days later, a statement was released by Kristin's family that appeared to contradict previous claims. The Smart family clarified that it wasn't the Bureau who reached out to them, it was a retired FBI agent who was a friend of the family. They went on to say that no expected announcement related to Kristin's disappearance. It was delayed by authorities. I can only imagine what this poor family's gone through. They already lost their daughter. They just want to know what happened to her. But all of that changed exactly 1 week later. On January 29th, a press conference was issued by the San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's Office, confirming a development in the Kristin Smart case. At this point, detectives supposedly had their hands on 2 trucks that the Flores family owned at the time of Kristin's disappearance. In the press release, law enforcement did acknowledge that they had 2 vehicles in their possession. However, they didn't say how long they've had them for. Still, they explained how, since a new sheriff took over the investigation in 2011, there have been developments in the case. According to the police department, throughout the last 9 years, 18 search warrants related to the case were executed. In addition, police claim to have traveled to 9 different areas to look for physical evidence that may lead them to solve this tragic case. At the same time, detectives re-examined all the statements and information that they already had on record. Since technology has significantly improved since the 90s, 37 items and evidence were sent for DNA testing. Officers stated that due to this process, since 2011, they were able to acquire 140 pieces of additional evidence. On top of all that, investigators conducted over 90 interviews and documented over 360 new reports. Police estimated that 7,500 hours and $62,000 were spent on trying to solve the case. In their statement, law enforcement didn't bring up any dramatic revelations, but a big announcement was about to come. The San Luis Obispo County Sheriff's Office released a second public message on February 5th. This time they confirmed that they executed search warrants in 4 different locations in Washington State and California. Understandably, the officers weren't able to release exact locations being investigated. Either way, local news station KCAL TV exposed a new dimension to the story. Supposedly, they were able to get a hold of one of the locations, and the address was a house in San Pedro, California. It happens to be the home of now 43-year-old Paul Flores. Finally, the news station didn't stop there. They went on to report that police detained a guy who matches the suspect's description outside the San Pedro residence. He was led into a police car wearing handcuffs and was eventually released after being held in custody for 2 hours. Meanwhile, investigators made their way to Arroyo Grande, where they stopped by Paul's mother, Susan's home. According to the Tribune, a San Luis Obispo newspaper, detectives used caution tape to seal off the entire property as a small crowd watched. Some people allegedly started screaming, "Dig her up." Perhaps they heard Lambert's podcast. Later on that day, police were seen leaving the house carrying multiple pieces of potential evidence. This included a storage container and a computer. During the late hours of the night, the county sheriff's office spokesperson, Tony Sapola, released a statement. He confirmed that investigators did, in fact, find some items of interest during that search. During an interview with the New York Times, he added, "We will now analyze those and see how they relate to the case. We would like nothing more than to bring closure to the Smart family in this case." Kristin's family thinks that Lambert's popular podcast played a huge part in the latest developments of the case. Even before February 5th, the Smarts thanked the musician for speaking about their daughter's case. Your Own Backyard has been instrumental in renewing interest in Kristin's investigation and generating many new leads. Sapola pointed out that the police department and law enforcement have always been dedicated to solving the Kristin Smart case. He explained in a statement, "This has always been an active investigation. It's never been a cold case. There is no denying that the investigation did not start off on the right foot. However, investigators seem more motivated than ever to solve the mystery. They put a lot of resources and energy to figure out what happened to Kristin on that fateful night over 2 decades ago. With the recent searches and new evidence, we're praying a resolution is on its way. The grieving Smart family has been wondering where their daughter is for years. We only pray that the truth comes out and they can finally start moving on. Kristin's disappearance was a tough case. She was so young and had her whole life ahead of her. This can happen to any college student. She just wanted a night out, but sadly, she never came home.